Have you ever stood in a place so ancient, so steeped in history, that the very air seems to hum with stories? A place where the line between the physical world and something else blurs? Today, we're journeying to the heart of Old Delhi, to a mosque shrouded in a mystery as intricate as the marble it's carved from. This isn't just any mosque. This is a place where prayers aren't just sent up to the heavens. They're answered by whispers from the shadows. Welcome to the story of the Whispering Mosque of Delhi. This isn't a scene from a movie. For centuries, this has been the reported experience of countless worshippers and visitors at one of Delhi's most enigmatic mosques. The phenomenon is so persistent, so deeply woven into the local lore, that it has earned the mosque its chilling nickname. They call it the Whispering Mosque, a place where the veil between worlds feels terrifyingly thin. So, what is this place? The mosque itself is a masterpiece of Mughal architecture, its white marble domes and intricate latticework telling a story of a bygone era. Could the Whispering Mosque simply be a grand, unintentional acoustic marvel? It's a plausible theory. The way sound bounces off the smooth, hard marble could certainly create strange and disorienting effects. A worshipper's own muttered prayer could be reflected back at them from an unexpected direction, making it sound like an external voice. The mind, already in a heightened state of spiritual focus, could easily interpret this acoustic anomaly as a supernatural response. This leads us into the realm of the paranormal. Local legends offer a different explanation, one rooted in folklore and belief. Some say the whispers belong to the jinn. In Islamic tradition, jinn are beings of smokeless fire who live in a world parallel to our own. They can be good, evil, or neutral, and are said to be drawn to places of great energy, both positive and negative. A place of such intense, centuries-long prayer like this mosque would be a beacon for them. Could it be that certain jinn have taken up residence within the mosque's walls, interacting with the humans who come to pray? This would explain the intelligence, the ability to know things, and the different reactions to different people. Another theory, even older, suggests that the mosque was built upon an ancient pre-Islamic sacred site. The ground itself, according to this legend, holds the spirits of those who were worshipped there long ago. The construction of the mosque did not silence them. It simply gave them a new structure to inhabit. Today, we journey to the heart of historic Cairo, a city of 1,000 minarets where ancient stories whisper on every breeze. But among its celebrated mosques and bustling souks lies a place shrouded in an unsettling quiet, a place locals call the Mosque of Silence. For centuries, this mosque was a beacon of faith, its halls echoing with prayer and scholarly discourse. Its imam was a man renowned for his wisdom and the profound beauty of his voice. His sermons were legendary, drawing faithful from every corner of the city. But one day, without a word, he vanished. The mosque, once the soul of the community, slowly fell silent, its doors eventually closing to the public, left to the mercy of time and dust. Years turned into decades. The mosque became a forgotten relic, its glorious past fading into memory. But then, something strange began to happen. The locals, the descendants of those who once prayed within its walls, started hearing something on Fridays, at the exact time of the noon prayer. A voice, clear and resonant, delivering a sermon from within the deserted building. They described the voice as powerful yet gentle, filled with a familiar, timeless wisdom. It spoke of faith, of patience, of the eternal nature of the Spirit. But when they would cautiously approach the locked gates, they found nothing. The courtyard was empty, the prayer hall shrouded in darkness, home only to dust motes dancing in slivers of sunlight. There was no living soul inside. Curiosity and a touch of fear grew in the community. Who was delivering these sermons? Some elders, their eyes filled with a distant memory, claimed the voice was unmistakable. It was the voice of the long-lost imam, returned in spirit to his beloved mosque. They said his devotion was so strong that it had transcended the boundaries of life and time, his voice now a permanent echo within those sacred walls. Skeptics, of course, offered other explanations. Perhaps it was a trick of the wind, the unique acoustics of the ancient structure carrying sounds from a nearby mosque in a distorted, ghostly way. Others suggested it might be a recording, cleverly hidden by someone wanting to preserve the mosque, as legend, or perhaps play a prank on the neighborhood. Yet no one has ever found a hidden speaker, no device to explain the phenomenon. And the sermons are never the same. They change each Friday, always relevant, always profound. One Friday, a young historian named Amir, armed with high-sensitivity recording equipment, decided to solve the mystery once and for all. He had heard the tales since he was a child and was determined to find a logical explanation. He set up his gear near the mosque's high, barred windows, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. As the midday sun reached its zenith, it began. A voice, just as described, filled the air. It was not a faint whisper, but a full, eloquent oration. Amir was stunned. It sounded so real, so present. His equipment registered the sound waves clearly, but there was no discernible source. It seemed to emanate from the very stones of the mosque itself. As he listened, captivated, the sermon's words began to resonate deeply within him. It spoke of how memory keeps things alive, how faith is not confined to buildings but lives in the hearts of people, and how a legacy of goodness can echo forever. He forgot about his scientific quest, finding himself lost in the sheer beauty and wisdom of the message. The voice was not haunting. It was comforting, like a timeless guide speaking across the ages. The recording captured the voice, but it offered no new answers. In fact, it only deepened the mystery. When analyzed, the audio profile was clean, without the distortion you'd expect from a simple echo. It was as if someone was standing right in the main prayer hall, speaking directly into a microphone. But everyone knew that hall had been sealed for nearly a century. The Mosque of Silence remains an enigma. Is it a unique acoustic phenomenon, a testament to the power of collective memory and suggestion, or something more? Is it possible that a person's spirit, their devotion, and their voice could leave such an indelible mark on a place that it continues to resonate long after they are gone? The people of the neighborhood no longer try to explain it. For them, the Friday sermon is a blessing. It's a link to their heritage, a reminder of a golden past and a source of weekly comfort and guidance. They gather outside the old walls, not in fear, but in quiet reverence, listening to the voice that time forgot. The vanishing imam, in his own mysterious way, has never truly left his congregation. His mosque may be silent to the eye, but to the ear and the heart it still speaks. What do you think is behind the mystery of the Mosque of Silence? A ghost, a natural phenomenon, or something else entirely? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more explorations into the world's most fascinating mysteries. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever heard a story so chilling it makes the hair on your arms stand up? A tale not just of ghosts, but of a vow so powerful it transcended death itself? Today, we journey to the heart of rural France, to a place steeped in history and cloaked in an eternal, sorrowful mist. We're going to uncover the secrets of what I call the Monastery of Shadows. Imagine this, a centuries-old abbey, its stone walls weathered by time, rain, and something more, something heavier. For hundreds of years, this was a place of devout prayer, of quiet contemplation. Monks in simple robes walked these halls, their lives dedicated to a silent, sacred routine. Day in, day out, the air was filled with the low, resonant hum of Gregorian chants, a sound that seemed to hold the very stones together. It was a world unto itself, peaceful and isolated. But peace, as we know, is often fragile. The winds of change began to blow across France. It was a time of revolution, of upheaval. Orders came from on high, from the new secular powers that religious houses were to be dissolved. This abbey, a sanctuary for generations, was condemned to be shut down. Its lands were to be seized, its holy purpose erased, its monks scattered to the winds. For the men who had given their entire lives to this place, this was more than just an order. It was a desecration. This wasn't just their home. It was their world, their connection to the divine. Leaving was unthinkable. It would be a betrayal of their vows, of their God, of the very essence of their being. The abbot, a man of unwavering faith and iron will, gathered his brothers. In the dim candlelight of their ancient chapel, faced with the end of their way of life, they made a pact. They stood together, a silent brotherhood, and made a new, final vow. If they could not live within these sacred walls, then they would not leave them in death either. They vowed that their spirits would remain, bound to the abbey for eternity, to continue their holy duties long after their mortal bodies had failed. They would guard their home against the secular world that had cast them out. It wasn't just a promise. It was a curse. A self-inflicted curse born of desperation and devotion. They vowed they would never, ever leave. And they kept their word. The abbey was officially closed. The great wooden doors were barred, the monks dispersed. Or, so the official records say. But the locals, the people who lived in the shadow of the monastery's spire, knew better. They knew the monks had never truly left. As the years turned into decades, and decades into centuries, the abbey fell into ruin. Roofs collapsed, ivy crawled over the sacred carvings, and nature began to reclaim the stone. But something else lingered. A presence. An echo of the past that refused to fade. Locals began to whisper stories. Farmers, taking a shortcut home at twilight, would hear faint, melodic chanting carried on the wind. The unmistakable sound of Latin prayer, a language long since vanished from the surrounding villages. They'd catch glimpses of dark, hooded figures moving silently through the ruins, their forms indistinct like smoke. They weren't men of flesh and blood. They were shadows, gliding through the overgrown cloisters where they had once walked in life. The place gained a reputation. It became a site of morbid curiosity, a challenge for the brave and the foolish. Young people would dare each other to spend a night within the crumbling walls. Most would flee before midnight, scared off by the unnerving silence, the feeling of being watched by 100 unseen eyes, or the sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature that would steal the warmth from their bodies. But some stayed, and those who did came back with stories that would forever haunt them. One group of friends who ventured in on a foggy autumn evening told a terrifying tale. As they explored the skeletal remains of the main chapel, the air grew thick and heavy. A low humming began, seeming to emanate from the very stones around them. Then, through the dense fog that had rolled into the nave, they saw them. A procession of robed figures, their faces hidden in deep cowls, gliding past the ruined altar. They moved without a sound, their feet not touching the debris-strewn floor. The group was paralyzed by a mixture of awe and sheer terror. They weren't just seeing ghosts. They were witnessing a spectral ritual, a mass for the dead, performed by the dead. The chanting grew louder, a sorrowful, ethereal melody that seemed to pull the very soul from their bodies. They ran, and they didn't stop running until the abbey was a distant silhouette against the moonlit sky. Another story comes from a historian, a skeptic, who went to document the ruins in the 1980s. He set up his camera equipment, determined to debunk the local legends with logic and evidence. He spent the day taking photos, making notes, and feeling perfectly at ease. But as dusk settled, a profound sense of melancholy washed over him. It was a sadness so deep, so ancient, it felt like it wasn't his own. He heard a single, clear church bell toll, even though the bell tower had crumbled to dust a century before. Dismissing it as his mind playing tricks, he packed up his gear. As he turned to leave, he saw a lone figure standing in a doorway, watching him. It was a monk, his robe tattered, his form slightly transparent. The historian, a man of science, couldn't explain it. He simply raised his hand in a tentative wave. The figure slowly, sorrowfully shook its head before fading completely into the stone. The historian left that day with a newfound respect for the stories and a chilling feeling that he had been judged an intruder. What makes the Monastery of Shadows so uniquely unsettling is the nature of its haunting. These are not violent or malevolent spirits in the typical sense. They don't seek to harm, but to continue. They are trapped, not by a tragic event, but by their own unwavering oath. Their eternal patrol is a testament to their devotion. The Latin chants heard on the wind are not a threat, but a continuation of their sacred duty. The gliding robes seen in the mist are not specters of horror, but the echoes of a life of prayer. Think about the sheer power of that conviction. To believe so strongly in something that you would bind your very soul to a place, creating your own eternal purgatory on earth. It's a haunting born of piety, a curse woven from faith. The monks aren't trying to scare people away. They are simply ignoring the world that cast them out. To them, the abbey is not a ruin. It's still their sanctuary. Intruders, night visitors, and paranormal investigators are just fleeting distractions in their endless cycle of prayer and watchfulness. We are the ghosts in their world. Today, the ruins are largely closed off to the public, deemed too unstable and dangerous. But the legends persist. People living miles away still report hearing the faint, ghostly choir on still, quiet nights when the wind is just right. The Monastery of Shadows stands as a solemn monument, not just to a forgotten history, but to the enduring power of a promise. It's a chilling reminder that some vows are never broken, and some souls never find their final rest because they simply refuse to seek it. They chose to stay. They chose to become the eternal guardians of their sacred home, forever walking the fine line between memory and reality, between the living and the dead, in the heart of the French countryside. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the Monastery of Shadows. What do you think? Was it faith or folly that bound the monks to their home? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more tales from the world's most mysterious corners. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video. Have you ever heard a sound that chilled you to the bone? A sound that defied all logical explanation? In the heart of Savannah, Georgia, a city draped in Spanish moss and steeped in history, there exists a legend that does just that. It's a story of a church that no longer stands, a fire that consumed everything but its spirit, and bells that toll for a congregation of ghosts. This is the tale of the Phantom Church of Savannah. Savannah is often called America's most haunted city, and for good reason. Every cobblestone street and historic square seems to whisper stories of the past. But among its many spectral tales, the story of the church at Bonaventure Cemetery holds a special, eerie place. It's a story that blurs the line between history and folklore, a mystery that has captivated locals and ghost hunters for generations. To understand it, we must first travel back in time to a Savannah that was a bustling, thriving port city, but one that was no stranger to tragedy. Our story begins in the late 19th century. Imagine a small, humble chapel standing near the sacred grounds of Bonaventure Cemetery. This wasn't a grand cathedral, but a simple wooden structure, a place of solace and worship for the local community. It was a beacon of faith, its steeple reaching towards the heavens, and within that steeple hung a set of heavy bronze bells. These bells were the heartbeat of the community. They rang out to announce services, celebrated weddings, and solemnly mourned the passing of loved ones. Their chimes were a familiar, comforting sound, echoing through the live oak trees and across the Wilmington River. For years, the chapel served its purpose. Families gathered within its walls every Sunday, their voices rising in hymns that mingled with the scent of old wood and candle wax. The bells marked the rhythm of their lives. But one fateful night, everything changed. A fire, fierce and merciless, broke out. The cause has been lost to time. Some say it was a stray bolt of lightning from a sudden coastal storm. Others whisper of a tipped oil lamp left burning after a late service. Whatever the spark, the result was devastation. Flames devoured the dry, aged wood of the chapel with terrifying speed. The fire lit up the night sky, casting dancing, demonic shadows against the ancient tombstones of Bonaventure. Locals rushed to the scene, forming bucket brigades in a desperate, futile attempt to save their beloved church. But the inferno was too powerful. They could only watch in horror as the roof collapsed, the walls caved in, and the steeple, the proud spire that held the bells, was consumed by the blaze. The entire structure was reduced to a pile of smoldering ash and charred timber. By morning, all that remained was a scar on the landscape and a deep sense of loss in the hearts of the community. The fire destroyed the church, but it couldn't destroy its legend. In fact, it was from these ashes that the most unsettling part of the story was born. The days following the fire were filled with sorrow as the community cleared the debris. They salvaged what little they could, but the bells, those magnificent bronze bells, were gone. Melted and warped by the intense heat, they were thought to be lost forever, their beautiful voices silenced. The congregation eventually moved on, building a new church elsewhere, and the site of the old chapel was slowly reclaimed by nature. But then, something strange began to happen. It started subtly. A few weeks after the fire, people living near the cemetery began to hear a faint, familiar sound carried on the midnight air. It was the sound of church bells. At first, they dismissed it. Perhaps it was the wind, or a distant ship on the river, or simply their minds playing tricks on them, their grief manifesting as a phantom sound. It was impossible, after all. The church was gone, the bells were gone. But the sound persisted. Night after night, as the clock struck 12, the gentle, resonant tolling would begin. It wasn't loud or jarring, but a soft, melancholic peal that seemed to float from the very spot where the church once stood. The sound was so clear, so distinct, that it could not be ignored. More and more people heard it. Fishermen on the river, watchmen on their rounds, and families in their homes would stop what they were doing and listen, a shiver running down their spines. The bells of the Phantom Church were ringing. The legend grew with each passing night. The community, deeply rooted in both faith and superstition, began to whisper their own theories. The most popular and enduring belief was that the bells were calling the dead to a midnight mass. They believed that the spirits of those buried in Bonaventure Cemetery, former members of the congregation, were being summoned from their eternal rest to worship in the ghostly shell of their former church. The thought was both beautiful and terrifying. Imagine it. A congregation of silent, shadowy figures gathering on the hallowed ground, drawn together by the spectral chimes of bells that no longer existed. This idea took hold of the local imagination. Some brave or perhaps foolish souls ventured out to the site at midnight, hoping to catch a glimpse of this spectral service. Most saw nothing but the moonlit trees and the silent stones of the cemetery. But a few claimed to have witnessed something more. They spoke of seeing faint, shimmering lights where the chapel's windows would have been. Others described a strange, cold mist that would form and dissipate in the shape of the old church. One particularly chilling account tells of a man who heard not just the bells, but the faint, ethereal sound of an organ playing a hymn, a melody that faded as soon as he tried to get closer. These stories cemented the legend of the Phantom Church. It became a cautionary tale told to children, a spooky story shared around campfires, and a genuine mystery for paranormal investigators who flocked to Savannah. Over the decades, countless people have traveled to Bonaventure, hoping to hear the phantom bells for themselves. The experience is said to be profoundly unsettling. The area grows still. The usual nighttime sounds of crickets and frogs seem to fall silent, and then the clear, pure tone of a bell cuts through the darkness. Skeptics, of course, have offered alternative explanations. Some suggest the sounds are simply the clanging of buoys on the nearby river, their metallic sounds distorted by the wind and fog to sound like bells. Others propose it's a phenomenon known as an auditory hallucination, shared by a community grieving a collective loss. A more scientific theory points to acoustics, that sounds from a distant, real church could be carried by specific atmospheric conditions and focused on that one particular spot, creating the illusion of a local source. But for those who have stood there in the dead of night and heard the chimes, these logical explanations fall flat. They insist the sound is too close, too clear, too undeniably real to be a trick of the wind or mind. They describe it as a sound that you feel as much as you hear, a vibration that resonates deep within your soul. It doesn't sound like a buoy or a distant echo. It sounds exactly like what it's said to be, the bells of a lost church, ringing out across time. Today, the exact location of the original chapel is a matter of debate, lost to the overgrowth and the shifting landscape of the cemetery grounds. There is no plaque, no marker, no charred foundation to pinpoint the spot. The church exists only in memory and in legend, but the story endures, passed down from one generation to the next. It, as a testament to Savannah, has powerful connection to its past and its willingness to believe that not everything that is gone is truly lost. The Phantom Church of Savannah represents more than just a ghost story. It's a tale about memory, faith, and the indelible mark a place can leave on the spiritual landscape. It suggests that strong emotions and events, like the devotion of a congregation and the trauma of a fire, can imprint themselves onto a location, replaying themselves like a residual haunting for those who are open to perceiving it. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the legend invites us to listen a little more closely to the world around us, to consider the possibility that echoes of the past are still ringing, waiting to be heard. So, if you ever find yourself wandering the moonlit paths of Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, be still. Listen past the rustling leaves and the gentle lapping of the river. You might just hear it, the soft, ghostly tolling of the phantom bells, calling the faithful to a service that time itself cannot erase. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of Savannah's most haunting legends. If you enjoy tales of mystery and the paranormal, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next adventure into the unknown. We'd love to have you in our community. Until next time, stay curious. Beneath the romantic streets of Paris, past the glimmer of the Eiffel Tower and the hallowed halls of the Louvre, lies another city entirely. A silent, subterranean world that holds the secrets of over 6 million souls. This is the Empire of the Dead, the Paris catacombs, and its story is far darker and more mysterious than most visitors ever realize. Welcome, truth seekers, to a journey into the abyss. Today, we're not just exploring the well-trodden paths of the catacombs, we're venturing into the forbidden zones, the unmapped tunnels where the echoes of the lost still linger. Let's rewind to the late 18th century. Parisian cemeteries were literally overflowing. The ground couldn't hold any more bodies, leading to unsanitary conditions and public health crises. Walls of cemeteries were collapsing, spilling their macabre contents into neighboring properties. The city needed a solution, and it found one right beneath its feet. Ancient limestone quarries that had provided the very stone used to build Paris itself. So began the monumental and, frankly, bone-chilling task. For decades, under the cover of night, wagons filled with human remains rumbled through the streets. Priests chanted as bones and decomposing bodies were carted from cemeteries like Les Innocents and poured down into the quarries. It wasn't until later that a man named Louis-Étienne Héricard de Thury took on the task of organizing this chaos. He wasn't just stacking bones, he was creating a macabre work of art, a sprawling memento mori. He arranged skulls and femurs into patterns, walls, and even archways, adding plaques with poems and philosophical quotes about life and death. The most famous inscription greets visitors at the entrance. Arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort. Stop, this is the empire of death. The official tour covers about a mile of these tunnels, a carefully curated and reinforced section. But this is just a tiny fraction of the whole network. The true catacombs sprawl for over 200 miles beneath the city. A labyrinth of unlit, unstable, and officially illegal-to-enter tunnels. This is where our story takes a turn into the unknown. These forbidden tunnels are a magnet for a subculture of urban explorers known as cataphiles. For them, the catacombs are a playground, a secret sanctuary, a place to party, create art, and escape the world above. They navigate using hand-drawn maps passed down through generations of explorers, memorizing landmarks like specific carvings, cracks in the walls, or unique bone arrangements. They know the risks: getting lost, tunnel collapses, sudden flooding from the Seine, or encounters with the cataflics, the special police unit that patrols the tunnels. But there's another, more unsettling risk they face. The deeper you go, the stranger the stories get. Cataphiles speak of a palpable atmosphere in certain sections, a feeling of being watched. They report hearing disembodied whispers, footsteps in empty tunnels, and seeing fleeting shadows in the beam of their headlamps. Are these just tricks of the mind, the product of sensory deprivation in the absolute dark and silence, or is something else at play? This brings us to one of the most infamous legends of the catacombs, a story that blurs the line between urban myth and terrifying reality. In the early 2000s, a group of explorers, or perhaps a film crew training in the tunnels, stumbled upon a video camera. It was lying on the muddy ground, abandoned. The footage it contained has become a cornerstone of internet horror lore. The video begins normally enough. We see through the eyes of an unseen man navigating the tight, damp passageways. We hear his breathing, the crunch of gravel and bone fragments under his feet. He seems confident at first, moving with purpose, but then the mood shifts. His breathing becomes more rapid. He starts to run. The camera shakes violently, the beam of his headlamp wildly slashing through the darkness, illuminating endless walls of skulls that seem to grin back at him. There's no clear threat visible, no one chasing him, but his panic is undeniable, infectious. He's not just lost. He's terrified of something. He drops the camera, and for a few agonizing moments, we are left staring at the ceiling of the tunnel, listening to the sound of his footsteps and panicked cries fading into the suffocating silence of the deep. Then, nothing. No one knows who this man was. No one knows what he saw or what he was running from. He was never identified, and his body was never found. The footage simply ends, leaving us with a chilling question. What could possibly terrify an experienced explorer so much that he would abandon his only source of light and run blindly into the eternal darkness? Skeptics argue the video could be a hoax, a well-executed found-footage film. And it might be. But for those who spend time in the deep tunnels, it resonates with a terrifying truth. They speak of the pressure, a psychological phenomenon where the immense weight of the earth and the millions of dead above you begins to bear down on your sanity. The complete absence of light and sound can induce hallucinations. You start to hear your own heartbeat as a drum, the blood rushing in your ears as whispers. One cataphile shared a story about exploring a section known as the beach, a large cavern with a sandy floor. He and his friend were resting when they both heard what sounded like a child laughing from a connecting tunnel. They knew they were miles from any known entrance and had seen no one else for hours. Cautiously, they went to investigate. The tunnel was empty. The sound was gone. But as they turned to leave, they both saw a small, child-sized handprint in the damp clay on the wall, fresh and clear, in a place neither of them had touched. These stories aren't just ghost tales. They are warnings. The catacombs are not a theme park. They are a grave for over 6 million people. To enter the forbidden zones is to trespass not just against the law, but against the profound silence of the dead. The explorers who vanish, the voices caught on tape, they become part of the catacombs' dark legacy. Their stories are a reminder that when you enter the empire of the dead, you do so at your own risk, and you might just find that some of its residents are not resting as peacefully as you'd think. The darkness down there is absolute, and in that darkness it's very, very easy to get lost forever. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the shadows beneath Paris. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Stay curious and stay safe. Have you ever heard of a place so cursed, so magnetically charged with strange energy that pilots who fly over it simply vanish from the sky? A place where animals, guided by a primal instinct, refuse to set foot? Welcome to the Superstition Mountains of Arizona, a vast and rugged wilderness that has earned a truly chilling nickname, the Devil's Graveyard. For centuries, this sun-scorched landscape has been a hotbed of inexplicable phenomena. It's often called America's own Bermuda Triangle, but on land, a magnetic vortex of death where the rules of our world seem to bend and break. Stories passed down through generations speak of a powerful, unseen force that guards this territory. But what is it? Let's start with the pilots. Over the decades, numerous small aircraft have disappeared without a trace in the skies above the Superstition Mountains. Search and rescue missions would be launched, combing the treacherous canyons and jagged peaks, only to find nothing. No wreckage, no distress signals, no clues. It's as if these planes were simply plucked from the air. Experienced aviators have reported severe instrument malfunction when flying over the area. Compasses spin wildly, GPS systems fail, and radios fill with static before going completely silent. Some even describe a feeling of intense disorientation, as if the very air itself was working against them. Could this be the result of a rare magnetic anomaly, a vortex, as some have claimed, or is something more mysterious at play? The strange behavior isn't just in the air, it's on the ground too. Local ranchers and hikers have long observed that animals seem to have an innate fear of certain parts of the mountains. Horses will become skittish and refuse to go further. Dogs will tuck their tails and whine, and even the wildlife, from deer to coyotes, appear to avoid specific canyons and mesas. It's as if they can sense a danger that we humans cannot. What could possibly deter every creature from entering this land? Ancient Apache legends speak of the thunder god who resides in the mountains, protecting a sacred space. they warned against entering, believing it to be a gateway to the lower world. These stories are not just folklore. They are solemn warnings that have been passed down for generations. This leads us to one of the most famous legends tied to the Devil's Graveyard, the legend of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. The story goes that in the 1800s, a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz discovered a mine of unimaginable wealth hidden deep within the mountains. He took the secret to his grave, leaving behind only a few cryptic clues. Since then, thousands of prospectors have ventured into the superstitions, obsessed with finding this lost fortune. But the mountains do not give up their secrets easily. Many of these treasure hunters have never returned. They were found weeks or months later, having met mysterious and often violent ends, not from animal attacks or dehydration, but under circumstances that defy logical explanation. Some were found miles from their camps with no supplies, others in positions that suggested they died in a state of sheer terror. The Apache believe the mine is protected by spirits, guardians of the gold, who drive intruders to madness or death. Could this all be connected? The vanished plains, the fearful animals, the doomed treasure hunters? Scientists who have dared to study the area have recorded bizarre findings. They've detected pockets of complete radio silence where no signals can get in or out. They've also measured unusual fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field, far stronger than what you'd find anywhere else. These magnetic vortexes are areas where the planet's natural energy is supposedly concentrated, amplified, and warped. Proponents of vortex theory believe these spots can affect human consciousness, cause hallucinations, and even interfere with mechanical and electronic devices. Is the Devil's Graveyard one of the most powerful and dangerous of these vortexes on the planet? The theories are as wild and numerous as the dangers themselves. Some suggest the magnetic anomalies are caused by a massive, unerupted underground volcano. Others point to the area's rich deposits of quartz crystal and other minerals, which they believe can store and amplify energy. And then, of course, there are the more paranormal explanations. Could this place be a portal to another dimension? An alien base hidden from prying eyes? Or is it truly the domain of ancient spirits, fiercely protecting their sacred land from the modern world? The Apache people have always treated this land with deep respect and caution. Their oral traditions tell of strange lights in the sky, shadow figures darting between the cacti, and the disembodied whispers carried on the desert wind. They don't see it as a place to conquer or exploit, but as a powerful, living entity that demands reverence. Perhaps they understood something that modern science is only just beginning to grapple with, that there are forces in this world beyond our comprehension. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from the very name, the Superstition Mountains. The name wasn't given because of the legends, but because the first European settlers, the Spanish, were so terrified by the strange events and the Apache warnings that they deemed the mountains Sierra de la Espuma, or Mountains of Foam, which later evolved into the superstitions we know today. They witnessed things they could not explain, and their fear was palpable. Today, the Superstition Mountains remain a popular destination for hikers and adventurers, but the mystery endures. Every year, new stories emerge of strange encounters, lost time, and chilling sensations. People report feeling watched, hearing footsteps behind them when no one is there, and experiencing sudden, overwhelming waves of fear that compel them to flee. Is it all just the power of suggestion, fueled by a century of spooky stories? Or is there a genuine, measurable phenomenon at work in the heart of this cursed desert? What do you think is going on in the Devil's Graveyard of Arizona? Is it a geological anomaly, a paranormal hotspot, or simply the deadly power of nature combined with human greed and imagination? The answers remain buried deep within the jagged peaks and silent canyons of the Superstition Mountains, a place that continues to guard its secrets with a deadly grip. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of America's greatest mysteries. If you have your own theory, or if you've ever experienced something strange in the wild, Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations into the unknown. Stay curious and stay safe. Have you ever felt a presence in an empty room? A whisper when no one is there? Today, we're journeying to the mystical city of Safed in Israel, a place where the veil between worlds feels incredibly thin. Nestled in its ancient, winding alleys is the Ha'ari Ashkenazi Synagogue, a house of prayer with a story that will send shivers down your spine. They say it's home to a spirit who never left, a rabbi whose devotion was so strong, not even death could make him leave his post. The synagogue itself is steeped in history. It was built in the late 16th century by Sephardic immigrants from Greece, but its most famous chapter began with the arrival of the great Kabbalist, Rabbi Isaac Luria, known as the Holy Ari. The Ari would often come to a field just outside the city walls to welcome the Sabbath with his disciples. He taught that on Friday evenings the divine presence, the Shekinah, enters the world like a bride. It was on this very spot that the synagogue was later built. Can you imagine the spiritual energy infused into this ground from the very beginning? The Ari's presence is said to linger here, a feeling of profound holiness that visitors still report today. But the Ari isn't the ghost of our story. Our tale centers on a different, later rabbi, one whose identity has become a legendary part of the synagogue's lore. The story goes that during a tumultuous period, perhaps an earthquake or a plague that swept through Safed, the congregation dwindled. The synagogue was in danger of being abandoned. But one rabbi refused to leave. He was the heart and soul of the community, and he made a vow to protect this sacred space, to ensure prayers would never cease within its walls. He prayed alone, day after day, his voice echoing in the empty hall. His devotion was absolute. When his time came, he had one final request: to be buried right there beneath the floor of the synagogue he loved so dearly. He wanted to remain its eternal guardian. His wish was granted, and his grave was marked under the bima, the raised platform where the Torah is read. From that day forward, the synagogue was never truly empty again. This is where the stories begin, passed down through generations. Worshippers arriving early in the morning would hear a faint melodic voice already deep in prayer. They'd open the heavy wooden doors, expecting to find someone inside, only to discover the hall completely empty. The voice would cease the moment they entered, as if a private conversation had been interrupted. Who was this phantom cantor leading the dawn prayers? The congregation came to believe it was the spirit of the buried rabbi, fulfilling his vow. Imagine being a member of that community. You arrive for morning services, and you can feel it. A sense of presence, a spiritual weight in the air. The room is cold, but not in an unwelcoming way. It feels occupied. Some say they've seen a shimmering, human-like form standing near the bima, swaying back and forth as if in deep prayer, only to vanish when they look directly at it. Others speak of prayer books found open to the correct page for the day, even when they were certain they had been closed the night before. One of the most famous accounts comes from a traveler who found himself in Safed with nowhere to stay. The synagogue keeper took pity on him and allowed him to sleep inside the holy building. In the dead of night, the traveler was awakened by the sound of a full congregation in prayer. He sat up, startled, and saw the synagogue filled with figures, all dressed in the traditional garb of centuries past. They were being led in prayer by a rabbi with a radiant face, standing on the bimah. The traveler was mesmerized by the beauty of the service. But as dawn approached, the figures along with their leader simply faded away, leaving him alone in the silent, empty synagogue. He had witnessed the rabbi's spiritual congregation. These aren't just old folk tales. Even today, visitors and locals share their experiences. People who sit in a particular chair, known as the Aries chair, report feeling a sudden surge of inspiration or a profound sense of peace. Is it just the power of suggestion in such a holy place, or is it something more? Skeptics might try to explain the sounds as the wind whistling through the ancient stone walls or the shifting of the old building. But how do you explain the feeling, the distinct sense that you are not alone, that a guardian is watching over the sanctity of this space? The legend says the rabbi's spirit doesn't just pray alone. He is said to join the congregation during services, his spiritual presence completing the minyan, the quorum of 10 men required for public prayer when they are short one person. There are countless stories of 9 men waiting desperately for a 10th to arrive, only to start the prayers when they feel a sudden shift in the room's atmosphere, a feeling that a 10th soul has just joined them. They can't see him, but they know he is there. The rabbi, even in death, ensures that the prayers never stop. What's so captivating about this story is its beautiful blend of the eerie and the divine. It's not a tale of a vengeful or frightening ghost. It's a story of ultimate faith and eternal devotion. It's about a love for a place and a community so powerful that it transcends the boundaries of life and death. The Spirit isn't haunting the synagogue. He's protecting it. He's its eternal keeper. So if you ever find yourself wandering the cobblestone streets of Saft, make your way to the Ha'ari Ashkenazi synagogue. Step inside, close your eyes, and just listen. Listen past the whispers of other tourists, past the sounds of the city outside. Listen to the silence. You might just hear the faint, timeless echo of a prayer. You might feel a gentle, reassuring presence. And you will know that you are standing in a place guarded by a rabbi who loved it so much, he never, ever left. Thanks for joining me on this spiritual journey today. If you enjoyed this dive into the world of history and mystery, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the world's most fascinating places. See you next time. Have you ever heard whispers of a place so unholy, so steeped in darkness that even the Vatican wishes it could be erased from history? Today, we journey to a quiet, unassuming village nestled in the heart of Italy, home to a church with a terrifying secret, a place they call the Church of the Damned. Our story begins in what seems like a picture-perfect Italian town, where cobblestone streets wind through ancient buildings and life moves at a gentle pace. At the center of this village stands a centuries-old church. For generations, it was the heart of the community, a place of baptisms, weddings, and quiet prayer. But that all changed one fateful Easter week. Locals say it began with a strange, coppery smell inside the sanctuary. At first, the parish priest dismissed it, but then, during the Maundy Thursday service, a woman in the front pew gasped and pointed. Dark, thick liquid, unmistakably like blood, was slowly seeping from the base of the ancient stone altar. Panic erupted. The service was abandoned as parishioners fled in terror. The phenomenon didn't stop. Throughout Good Friday and Holy Saturday, the bleeding intensified, pooling on the cold stone floor. The village was gripped by fear. Was it a miracle, a divine sign of Christ's suffering? Or was it something far more sinister? The local bishop was called, and he was so disturbed by what he saw that he immediately contacted the Vatican. Within days, a special team of investigators and exorcists arrived from Rome. They worked in absolute secrecy, barring all locals from entering the church grounds. Villagers reported seeing strange lights flickering in the church windows at all hours of the night and hearing guttural chants mixed with blood-curdling screams echoing through the empty streets. The air itself felt heavy, charged with a malevolent energy. What did those investigators find inside? The official records are sealed, locked away in the Vatican's deepest archives. But whispers and rumors have a way of escaping even the most secure vaults. It's said the investigators discovered the church wasn't built on consecrated ground at all. Instead, its foundations were laid over a pre-Christian site, a place used for dark, forgotten rituals where blood sacrifices were once made to ancient, vengeful gods. Legend has it that the church's construction didn't purify the land. It trapped the ancient evil beneath it. For centuries, this entity lay dormant, but something had awakened it. The investigators believed the sanctity of Easter week, a time of immense spiritual power, had somehow amplified the darkness, causing the very stones of the altar to weep with the blood of its past. The team's attempts to cleanse the church were met with violent resistance. Reports describe consecrated objects flying across the room, temperatures dropping to freezing in seconds, and disembodied voices whispering threats in ancient, long-dead languages. The head exorcist, a man who had faced demonic forces across the globe, was reportedly so shaken that he petitioned the Holy See to have the church deconsecrated and permanently sealed. His request was granted. The Church of the Damned was officially abandoned. Heavy chains were wrapped around its massive oak doors, and iron bars were bolted over the stained glass windows. The Vatican declared the site pericoloso, or dangerous, and forbade anyone from ever entering again. The holy water fonts were drained, the consecrated hosts removed, and the bleeding altar was left to its fate in the suffocating darkness. But you can't just wall up evil and expect it to disappear. The story doesn't end there. The village, once vibrant, began to wither. Families moved away, unable to live in the shadow of such a place. The town became a shell of its former self, haunted by the looming, silent church at its center. To this day, the church remains sealed. Yet, strange occurrences persist. Priests from neighboring parishes, assigned to watch over the site from a distance, have filed chilling reports. They speak of hearing what sounds like a tormented congregation wailing from within the locked building, especially during Easter week. Some have sworn they've heard a single, agonized scream that seems to go on for an eternity, a sound so filled with despair it chills the soul. Brave or foolish tourists who venture to the village and get too close to the church walls report sudden feelings of intense dread and nausea. Others have captured photographic anomalies, strange mists and shadowy figures lurking near the barred windows. It seems that whatever was trapped inside all those years ago is not sleeping. It's waiting. What is the truth behind the Church of the Damned? Is it a mass hallucination, a local legend spun out of control? Or is it a genuine portal, a place where the veil between our world and a realm of unimaginable suffering is terrifyingly thin? The bleeding altar of that forgotten Italian church stands as a chilling reminder that some places are better left undisturbed, and some doors are meant to stay locked forever. What do you think is happening inside that church? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of the world's most mysterious and haunted places. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there. Today, we're journeying to the heart of New Orleans, a city pulsating with music, flavor, and a history steeped in mystery. We're not just here for the beignets and jazz, we're venturing into one of America's most famous cities of the dead, St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. And within its labyrinthine paths of above-ground vaults lies the final resting place of a figure so powerful, her legend still echoes through the Big Easy, the voodoo queen herself, Marie Laveau. Now, if you think this is just another old grave, you're in for a surprise. This isn't just a tomb. For many, it's a shrine, a place of pilgrimage and a focal point of supernatural energy that has captivated people for nearly 200 years. So, grab your sense of adventure, and let's step into the world of Marie Laveau, where history and folklore intertwine, and where some say the Queen never truly left. Before we find her tomb, let's talk about the woman behind the legend. Marie Laveau, born around 1801, was a free woman of color, a hairdresser, and a devout Catholic. But she was also a formidable voodoo priestess. In 19th century New Orleans, voodoo was a complex blend of West African spiritual traditions, Catholicism, and local folk magic. Marie wasn't just a practitioner, she was its most public and influential face. Her clients came from every walk of life, from the city, its poorest servants, to its wealthiest politicians. They sought her help for everything: love, luck, health, and even justice. She was known for her compassion, her healing abilities, and her uncanny knowledge of the city's secrets. Marie would hold elaborate public rituals on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, ceremonies that became the stuff of local legend, drawing massive crowds and solidifying her status as the undisputed voodoo queen of New Orleans. She was a counselor, a community leader, and a figure of immense power in a time when women, especially women of color, had very little. After her passing in 1881, the stories only grew stronger. Her influence was so profound that many believed she possessed supernatural abilities that transcended death itself. Which brings us here, to this specific tomb in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. Although historical records can be a bit murky, this three-tiered, stuccoed vault is widely accepted as her final resting place. And as you can see, it's far from forgotten. Look closely. The tomb is covered in markings, triple X's drawn in chalk or brick. And this is a modern tradition, though its origins are debated. For decades, visitors would draw an X, turn around 3 times, knock on the tomb, and make a wish. If the wish was granted, they were to return, circle their X, and leave an offering as thanks. You can see coins, beads, flowers, and candles left behind. Tokens of hope and gratitude from people who still believe in her power. This practice became so popular that it was actually damaging the fragile historic tomb. In recent years, access to the cemetery has been restricted to licensed tour guides only, partly to protect this very site from vandalism and deterioration. So, while you can no longer draw an X, the presence of fresh offerings shows that the tradition of seeking Marie's favor continues in other ways. People still come, they still ask, and they still believe. The cemetery itself is an incredible place. Established in 1789, it's the oldest existing cemetery in New Orleans. Because the city is built on swampland, with a high water table, burying people underground wasn't practical. So they adopted the European tradition of above-ground vaults and family tombs. Walking through these narrow alleys feels like navigating a miniature city, each tomb a small house for its residents. It's hauntingly beautiful, with crumbling plaster, intricate ironwork, and a quiet sense of timelessness. You can almost feel the layers of history with every step. But Marie Laveau's tomb holds a unique aura, one that goes beyond simple historical reverence. It's a focal point for countless stories of strange occurrences. Tour guides and visitors have reported feeling sudden cold spots, hearing disembodied whispers, or feeling an unseen presence near the vault. Some even claim to have seen a tall, striking woman in a tignon, a traditional head wrap, walking among the tombs before vanishing into thin air. Is it just the power of suggestion in a spooky setting? Or is the spirit of the voodoo queen still presiding over her domain? Now, let's talk about the most chilling legend associated with this tomb. It's a cautionary tale for skeptics and troublemakers. The story goes that those who disrespect Marie Laveau's final resting place by mocking her, defacing the tomb, or loudly proclaiming their disbelief, often experience her immediate and unsettling wrath. What kind of wrath, you ask? Well, it's something that shows up after they leave. The legend specifically revolves around photographs. People will pose in front of the tomb, sometimes making a joke or disrespectful gesture. They'll snap a picture, and everything will seem perfectly normal. But later, when they look back at the photo, they get a shock. In the image, right where they were standing, they'll see it. Marie Laveau's eyes, wide open, staring back at them from the photograph. Sometimes it's just the eyes, superimposed over the image, and other times, her entire spectral face appears. Think about that for a moment. A ghostly apparition captured on camera, as if she's watching and judging those who trespass with ill intent. Countless tourists have shared these alleged haunted photos online, fueling the legend even further. Skeptics argue it's just tricks of light, pareidolia, our brain's tendency to see faces in random patterns, or digital manipulation. But for believers, it's irrefutable proof that the Queen is still watching. It serves as a powerful warning. You can visit, You can ask for a favor. You can even be a skeptic, but you must always show respect. So, what's the truth? Is Marie Laveau's spirit truly attached to this tomb, protecting it from disrespect and granting wishes to the faithful? Or is this all just a fantastic story, built from a city's love for folklore and the powerful memory of an unforgettable woman? The beauty of New Orleans is that the line between reality and legend is beautifully, wonderfully blurred. Marie Laveau was a master of public perception. She understood the power of belief, and she built an empire on it. It's almost fitting that in death, her legacy continues to be a blend of verifiable history and supernatural myth. She remains exactly what she was in life, a powerful, mysterious figure who commands respect and inspires both awe and a little bit of fear. Whether you believe in voodoo or not, you can't deny the enduring power of her story. Standing here, you realize this tomb is more than just a burial site. It's a living monument, a direct connection to the spiritual heart of New Orleans. It's a testament to a woman who, against all odds, became one of the most influential figures in the city's history. Her spirit, whether literal or figurative, is woven into the very fabric of this place. So, if you ever find yourself wandering the alleys of St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, be sure to stop by and pay your respects. Leave a small, harmless offering if you feel moved to do so. And maybe, just maybe, make a wish. But whatever you do, remember the stories, and always show respect. You never know who might be watching. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into the mystical world of New Orleans and its voodoo queen. If you enjoyed this dive into history and legend, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more adventures into the world's most fascinating and mysterious places. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Have you ever had a strange experience in a cemetery? Until next time, stay curious. Welcome, truth seekers, to another journey into the unknown. Today, we're venturing into the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, a land of breathtaking beauty and chilling secrets. Beyond the charted maps where the snow falls thick and heavy, lies a story frozen in time, a place whispered about by seasoned explorers and local lore keepers, the graveyard of the forgotten. Imagine this. A vast, unending expanse of white. The wind howls a lonely song, and the only landmarks are the jagged peaks of distant mountains. It's here, deep within this unforgiving landscape, that a geological anomaly, a massive ice sheet recession, has begun to reveal something lost for centuries. Not a shipwreck, not a lost plane, but an entire settlement, swallowed by ice and time. The first whispers came from bush pilots and surveyors, who noticed strange, unnatural formations emerging from the glacial ice. They reported what looked like the rooftops of buildings, the peak of a steeple, all encased in a tomb of blue-white ice. These were not modern structures. The architecture was crude, rustic, speaking of an era long past, a time of pioneers and gold prospectors who dared to challenge the Alaskan frontier and vanished without a trace. This settlement, which we'll call Nick's Folly, after the nearby Nick Glacier, isn't on any map. There are no historical records, no journal entries detailing its existence or its demise. It's as if an entire community was simply erased from history, their stories flash frozen, their final moments locked away. As the ice slowly gives way, it offers a haunting glimpse into a life abruptly ended. Tools lie where they were dropped, doorways stand open, and inside these crystalline structures, the ghostly outlines of furniture are visible. But the most unsettling discovery lies on a small hill overlooking the ghost town. A graveyard, a collection of simple, hand-carved wooden crosses, leaning at odd angles, half submerged in the snow and ice. These markers are weathered but remarkably preserved by the cold. They stand as silent sentinels, guarding the final resting place of the forgotten souls who once called Nick's Folly home. Who were they? What brought them to this desolate corner of the world? And, more importantly, what happened to them? This is where the story takes a turn from a historical mystery to a modern-day, chilling encounter. A small, highly experienced team of researchers and explorers was granted a rare permit to document the site before it lost again to the elements or buried by the next winter's snow. Equipped with ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging, they set up a base camp, driven by the promise of rewriting a lost chapter of Alaskan history. Their first few days were filled with incredible discoveries. They mapped the layout of the town, identifying a general store, a blacksmith, and several small cabins. The graveyard held a particular fascination. The crosses were nameless, the inscriptions long since worn away by wind and ice. The team worked meticulously, documenting each grave, speculating on the lives of those buried beneath the permafrost. One evening, as a blizzard began to roll in, 2 members of the team were making a final scan of the graveyard with thermal cameras. The wind was picking up, whipping snow into a blinding curtain of white. As they panned their cameras across the crosses, they saw it, a heat signature. It was faint but unmistakable, the shape of a person standing among the graves. They assumed it was another team member who had foolishly wandered out into the storm. They called out, their voices swallowed by the gale. No response. They radioed back to camp. Everyone was accounted for. A cold dread began to creep in. Staring at their thermal monitor, they watched as the figure remained perfectly still, seemingly unaffected by the sub-zero temperatures and hurricane-force winds. It just stood there, between 2 weathered crosses looking out towards them. Then, as they watched, the figure slowly turned its head, as if staring directly at their position. A moment later, it vanished. Not walked away, not obscured by the snow. It was there, and then it was gone. Shaken, they retreated to the relative safety of their camp. They tried to rationalize what they saw. A trick of the light? A glitch in the equipment? But they had both seen it. The incident was logged but discussed in hushed tones. The scientific expedition had taken on a new, unnerving dimension. The following day, the blizzard had passed, leaving a fresh, pristine blanket of snow. The team decided to investigate the spot where the figure had been seen. They expected to find footprints, some sign that a person had been there. They found nothing. The snow around the graves was completely untouched, a smooth, unbroken sheet. It was impossible. No person could have stood there and left no trace. This is when the reports get even more terrifying. The phenomenon was no longer confined to thermal cameras. During the brief, hazy twilight of the Alaskan day, team members began reporting fleeting glimpses with their own eyes. Dark shapes standing at the edge of their peripheral vision, figures that would disappear the moment they turned to look directly at them. The most common location was always the same: the graveyard. One researcher, a seasoned geologist named Anya, was photographing the crosses when she felt a sudden, intense drop in temperature. Her breath plumed in the air, thicker than usual. She looked up and saw him. Standing not 20 feet away, partially obscured by a swirl of wind-blown snow, was the figure of a man. He was tall and gaunt, dressed in what looked like old, tattered prospecting clothes. His face was obscured by shadow and the thick fur of a rough hood, but Anya said she could feel his eyes on her. It wasn't menacing, she reported later. It was sad. A look of profound, unending loneliness. She blinked, and he was gone. The team was now on edge. The initial excitement of their discovery was replaced by growing fear. The nights were the worst. The howling wind seemed to carry whispers, faint, unintelligible words on the edge of hearing. The feeling of being watched was constant, a heavy pressure that settled over the camp. Sleep became a luxury few could afford, as many were haunted by vivid nightmares of being lost in a blizzard, of hands reaching out from beneath the ice. The final straw came during the strongest solar storm of the expedition. The aurora borealis lit up the sky in an unearthly display of green and purple light, a celestial dance that made the frozen landscape look alien. The team's communication equipment went haywire. As they worked to fix the radio, the camp's main floodlight, which illuminated the path towards the settlement, flickered and died. In the eerie, pulsating light of the aurora, they saw them. Not just one figure, several. They were standing in the graveyard, scattered amongst the crosses. Some were tall, some short. They were perfectly still, dark silhouettes against the glowing sky. They weren't looking at the camp. They were all looking up at the aurora, as if watching a long-forgotten spectacle. The entire team saw it. There was no denying it, no rationalizing it away. For a few terrifying minutes, the living and the dead, or whatever they were, shared the same space under the dancing lights. The team leader made the call. The expedition was over. They packed up what they could in a frantic hurry, leaving behind non-essential equipment. They felt an overwhelming urgency to leave, as if they had overstayed their welcome and broken a sacred silence. As their small plane took off, circling once over the site, they looked down. The settlement of Kinnick's Folly was already being reclaimed by the snow, and on the hill, the small dark shapes of the crosses stood watch. There were no figures among them. They were alone again. The researchers returned with incredible data, but also with a story they are hesitant to share with the wider scientific community. Their official report speaks of atmospheric anomalies and the psychological effects of isolation in extreme environments, but privately they know what they saw. They believe the figures are the spirits of the settlers, the forgotten of the graveyard, their lonely watch continuing for eternity. They are the Alaska Shadows, guardians of their frozen town. Their presence a silent, chilling reminder that some places are not meant to be disturbed, and some secrets are best left buried beneath the ice. What do you think? Were these apparitions merely tricks of the mind, brought on by exhaustion and the extreme environment? Or did this team of explorers truly stumble upon a graveyard that refuses to be forgotten, where the silent watchers still stand guard? The Alaskan wilderness holds its secrets close, and the story of Nick's Folly is a haunting testament to the mysteries that lie just beneath the surface. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey. If you have stories of your own or theories about the Alaska Shadows, share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations into the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Stay curious and stay safe.